Welcome everyone to Apprentice Live, where we talk to bootcamp alumni and industry experts on how to break into your first tech role. I'm your host, Rod Dannon, and today we get the pleasure of speaking with Karen Farbman. And Karen is a data scientist at Atos, zData, and a data science mentor at Thinkful, just like me. Before that, she graduated from a bootcamp called Galvanize, and she studied data science there. So today, we will be walking through Karen's journey and touching on what got her to this point where she has a job, she made it at bootcamp, and I think she's pretty successful. So we promise to answer all your questions. So if you do have questions, please make sure to write them in the chat. We will answer some in the middle, but most will probably save until the end, but I promise we will get to everything that we can. So let's start from the top, Karen. So I saw that you actually got 2 bachelors, one in music and one in physics. So first, what led you to that?
Yeah, I really enjoyed, math and physics and just solving problems back in high school. So when I got to college, I wanted to continue doing that. But I had been playing the flute since I was 8 or 9 years old, so wanted to continue doing that. So it's kind of one of those things where I just wanted to be able to do them both. And I went to the University of Rochester, where majoring in a hard science and in art is totally normal there. So tons of people double majored in like biology and studio art or, weird combinations like that.
Gotcha. And then in terms of like job prospects, like what were you like trying to target? So when you did physics and music?
My original plan was to get a PhD in physics. And then after 4 years of undergrad, I was like, nope, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to be in school for another 7 or 8 years and then have to continue in academia. So I basically just, when I got out of college, was like, nope, that's not for me. Guess I got to find something else.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Because like with college, like when you're in it, like after 4 years, you're like, wow, like I'm gonna do more. Like I did my master's like another year on top of like 4.5 years, and I'm just like, wow, like I can't imagine a PhD. Like that's the craziest part.
Yeah, so, and that's basically the only path out of physics if you want to do something in physics other than teaching.
That, and then you go into some sort of like other fields. But I know physics usually that kind of gives you a kind of upper hand if you want to go into, even data science or other mathematical fields.
Yeah, that's what they said. That's why I was, not upset to be majoring in physics when I didn't want to do it. They basically said you can major in physics and then go do anything. You can go to law school. You can, do whatever you want. So it was definitely helpful getting a physics degree.
Okay, so it wasn't complete waste. So once you get out, like what was the job that you went to from college?
So I started as a product developer at a financial software company. So it was a big corporate company, and I was basically just working on helping them figure out if their new products were working and what other features they should add to it. So nothing to do with physics at all.
So when you say product developer, so like my mind obviously went to like coding right away, but in this case, it's more of determining what products work.
Yeah, so they had financial software that they were using, and they had an old product, and then they were coming out with something new, and they wanted to make sure that the results were the same and that the customer experience was kind of the same. So actually one of the tasks that I had to do was review 2 Excel spreadsheets, one from the old product and one from the new product, to look for any differences. And we were doing this manually, like visually looking at Excel spreadsheets and highlighting rows that were different. And I had a friend who was a developer who was like, hey, you can write code for this in Python that'll do it in 2 seconds instead of 2 hours. And so that was kind of what got me into Python. I was like, wow, I can make my job so much easier.
Yeah, so you got in real early. Like that was just like an accident, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so then you're working in this product development job. So how long were you in that job?
I was there for almost 1.5 years, I think. And then that just became too much for me. My team didn't want to move over to the easy programming route. They still wanted to do things manually. And so I had no work to do while they had hours and hours of work. I was like, this just isn't fun anymore.
No, I know what you mean. Like, especially like in more established companies, like people are set in their ways. They don't want to change. And like, when I worked at American Express, like I was the first person. I was like, yeah, let's do everything in Python. And everyone's like, what do you mean? Like we pay thousands of dollars a year for SaaS. And I'm like, no, like no one's using that anymore. But, you know, when they're working on with it for like 10, 20 years, like that's what they're safe with, comfortable with. They got the reports in there. And I think that's something that also like bootcamp grads will see is like you come with ideas and then some companies are like still stuck.
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
So is that something like you also experienced, like not only in that job, but in the future as well?
I haven't really dealt with that in the future. So that was the only job that I had like pre-data science bootcamp. After that, I became a ski instructor, and you know, you don't really need to use any programming there. And then since I've been a data scientist in my job, it's pretty much as a consultant, you're working for people who want to listen to you. So a lot of the times they're fairly easy to convince.
Well, that's good. At least they trust you, because you know trust is huge in the whole tech world. But so going back to the product development job, so you worked there for a year and a half, and then after there, did you go to bootcamp right away, or you just go to the ski instructor job first?
That I just moved out to Colorado, taught skiing for 2 seasons, and as a ski instructor, you need to have like a million jobs. So one of my jobs was part-time, and I was working with some database stuff, so getting some experience with SQL. And then after doing that for a couple of years is when I decided to go to a boot camp.
Okay, so SQL is basically like the spark that's like, okay, like let me get deeper into data stuff.
Yeah. I wasn't doing like too much with it, but it was like, hey, I can do this. This is not hard. It's something that I can use in the future with other things, and actually it's part of something.
Yeah, and I get what you mean, because I feel like most people, like, they don't get exposed initially. It's more like, hey, like what can I do to, you know, get into tech or earn more money or something like that. And that's how they get into tech. But like you basically did it a little bit. You got a taste, and then you're like, let me go in all the way.
Yeah. I had like bits and pieces from different things, and then I was like, hey, I can just put these together.
Yeah, no, I never heard of like SQL itself spurring the love for data science. Usually it's like, okay, like let me build like a robot. But SQL, okay, so it got you in, and then I guess so data science came first, and then once you decided, hey, I want to learn data science, what got you towards a bootcamp? Like, did you consider other options?
Yeah, I was sort of weighing the pros and cons of a master's program versus a bootcamp versus just teaching myself in, you know, the millions of courses that are out there online.
Yeah.
And I decided I didn't want to be in school for another 2 years. And I personally have a hard time teaching myself things. I don't have like the discipline, and I didn't really know all of the things that I would need to know for data science. So going to a bootcamp felt like kind of the best of both worlds, where I was in class and somebody was guiding me, but it was only for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And then I would be off on my own, and I'd have that sort of background and that springboard.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest benefit, because like in boot camps, you are teaching yourself no matter what. Like you have to make it through.
Oh yeah.
But I had a friend recently. They're like, yeah, should I do boot camp or self teach? I'm like, well, like how self disciplined are you? It's really hard to learn alone.
Yeah, I needed that guidance of somebody telling me like, these are the things you want to learn, and keeping me kind of on a schedule, having someone to sort of review my work and make sure it was up to par.
Yeah, exactly. Someone to say like, okay, this is the right way, that's the wrong way, keeping you on track. So overall, like with your bootcamp experience, was like a positive one? Like you come out of it feeling like you were ready for the world?
I would say it was a positive experience, but I definitely didn't feel like I was ready for the world. Imposter syndrome is so real. It was then. It still is now, even after I've been in my job for almost 3 years. But yeah, I came out of boot camp thinking like, oh, I've just done this for 3 months. I have a very, very surface level knowledge of all of these things, and now I have to go find a job. So, I mean, it was daunting for sure.
So, but like, did the imposter syndrome ever paralyze you? Where like I don't even want to apply because like I'm not worthy, or was it just like you kept applying anyways?
I just kept applying. I sent out definitely over 60 applications in the 3 months that I was looking for a job.
Wow. And like those like dedicated ones. So then from like 60 applications, how many led to interviews, you know?
I think I had 5 interviews. Most of them I didn't hear back from. The ones that I did hear back from said you don't have enough experience. And then I had first interviews at I think 5 companies, and then 2 of them I progressed farther and was deciding between at the end.
Okay. So sounds like overall with your job search, it wasn't the hardest, because like I guess now is kind of a tricky time because of the job market. I feel like a lot of people go, beyond 3 months, and even though, for you it was 3 months, how did you keep yourself kind of motivated to keep on applying, keep on going, and pushing towards data science? Did you ever feel like quitting?
No, I definitely didn't feel like quitting. I considered taking other positions like data analyst or data engineer, things that weren't necessarily data scientist, but are similar paths, and you can kind of continue the problem solving data kind of things. But my job search was actually, so my program ended at the end of October. So I was job searching over Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So it was a tough time then too, just because of the holidays and most people not, accepting people at that point until January when it was nice and like people are like hiring again. So that was good just to see that like surge when it hit the new year.
Yeah, no, you definitely got lucky with that, because like everyone talks about it. In December, like if you're gonna get hired by like November, it's kind of like daunting because everyone's going out to vacation, and like nothing until January.
Yeah.
So no, I'm happy that you were able to secure that job and get out of it. So going into the actual position. So actually, before we get into that, so for you, how would you define data science for someone that's never heard of it? Because I know we do have some data scientists in the audience, but some people might be interested in it.
I guess the like most basic level description of data scientist is like it's a combination of statistics and programming to solve business problems. And then when people ask for examples of it, usually like Netflix is the first one that I can think of like that uses data science. So that's usually how I describe it.
Yeah, and then in terms of the statistics and the programming side, is there any specific part of data science you prefer?
So I don't love statistics. So doing A/B testing or any of that, like that is not my forte. I really just love like solving problems in Python, like having crazy data that you need to make sense, which is, most of the job of a data scientist actually is cleaning data and feature engineering and getting it ready for the modeling part. So those are the parts that I really enjoy.
I like that you mentioned the data cleaning part, because a lot of people, they hear about the fancy stuff about data science and they're like, all right, let me go build, I guess like a Netflix recommendation engine, something like that. But then it actually is a lot of like a huge majority of data cleaning. So like when you first started your job, was that like a big shock that, hey, like the rumors were not joking?
It was a little bit. Like the first project that I was on at my first job, well, I guess the first project was different, but the first big project that I was on, my entire job was like cleaning and standardizing data so it could go through the pipeline and then be modeled later. So that's what I did for the majority of my time on that like first couple months.
So it was really just months of only clean. You didn't even get to build like a model or anything.
So I was building it into like the pipeline, but no, I wasn't doing any fancy modeling or anything.
They were hazing you.
They were easing me in.
Easing you in. Okay, that's a nicer term. So overall with the first year, so we heard about the first 3 months, but in the first year of the job, how did you feel? Like, how long did it take you to get kind of comfortable, saying, hey, I'm a data scientist, like I'm working out here?
It didn't actually take that long. So the way that I got my job, there's a Slack channel, Denver Devs, which is a just developer community in Denver. And someone posted in it, my company's hiring a data scientist. And I messaged back, I am a data scientist. Here's my resume.
There you go.
And so that was just kind of like it. Like I said, I am a data scientist. And that was like my identity then. And then I was actually the first / only junior data scientist at my company at that time. Pretty small company, but so I was like the only junior data scientist. And I was like, wow, everybody has PhDs or so many years of experience. And then there's me. But it was kind of nice because nobody ever made me feel like I was less than them. Everybody was welcoming and super helpful. And like, I had problems asking questions because I was like, they're all going to think I'm stupid. And then I would ask a question and someone would say like, yeah, that's something I'm working on too. Maybe we can find an answer together. Or something like that, which was very nice to feel equal to them. And everyone is brilliant and wonderful. So.
Yeah. So two things I want to remark on. One, I love that you said like, I am a data scientist, because that's something that people will be kind of scared to say. Like they think, and that comes with the imposter syndrome. It's, hey, like all I've done is, go to boot camp. All I've done is create a project. Like there's so much that I don't know. So they're scared to say, I am a developer, I am a data scientist, I am a designer, whatever it might be. So like, was there a point where that kind of switched for you? Or was it like, was that the point?
I mean, it like, I feel like I started saying it before I completely felt it. Like you need to tell yourself and everyone else that so that you can believe it yourself. So I don't know that I necessarily felt it when I said it, but yeah, just being able to identify it with that. Like as soon as you're like, that's what I want to do, and like are on the way to doing it, like that's you. If you're working towards being a data scientist, you're a data scientist.
Very, very good point. Exactly. You have to, you create your own identity. And then, so then once you're on the job and also, let's see. So we got our first question. Professor Pratt is asking is, how did the interview go for your first job?
Yeah, so my interview was it was interesting. So it was a very small company. We were acquired, so we were even smaller when I started. The first person I talked to was one of the founders of the company, and it was just kind of a get to know you interview. And then I had a more technical interview with the other founder of the company. And then instead of like a technical like whiteboarding or anything like that, I had a take home, basically a project. He was like, hey, use your data set that you're familiar with and build something in Elasticsearch. Like you haven't used that, learn how to do it, show me that you can learn how to use this new technology, and like come back to me when you have something. And so I think that was on a Friday. And so I started working on it Friday night, was working on it through the weekend, and I like emailed a couple times with questions. And he got back to me right away, like instantly. He's always online. But I like gave him something and he was like, that's great. That worked out. And then my first project when I started on the job was actually working with Elasticsearch. So there was a reason for it.
I think that's probably one of the hardest like technical things I've ever heard, because one, they're like, okay, use your own data set. Like you're supposed to just have a data set ready. And then two is learning Elasticsearch. Like, so like at first when like they told you you're going to do that, like what were you thinking?
I mean, I was like, I don't know this. Like, I hope it works. But then I just like started looking into the documentation, and it was like, it wasn't that bad. Like it was not the most straightforward thing I'd ever had to do, but I had just gotten out of a boot camp where I was literally learning a new technology like every day for 3 months. And so I was like, momentum, just like keep going. I can learn something else. And I did have a good data set. It was the one that I had used for my capstone project, which I also think is a large part of why I got a job, was just because of my project. So he already knew about that data set that I had, and it was not hard to like go find one for it.
Okay, so you touched on the capstone project. So you're saying like that is a big part of what got you noticed in the first place. So what was it?
So my capstone was a ski run recommender. I'm gonna give you the link in case anyone wants to go to the website. It's up online. So I created it from beginning to end. I web scraped data, cleaned it, calculated recommendations, and then put it up in a website that's actually hosted on AWS that you can go to. So basically, I was a ski instructor, but there were some mountains that I had never been to. And when I went to them, I didn't know where to ski or what runs I would like. And like everybody has kind of different opinions on what ski runs are like. So I couldn't just ask somebody like, hey, where should I go? Because, you know, how do they know what I want to ski on? So this takes a run that you know and will recommend similar runs at other mountains. So that was my capstone project, and I was super passionate about it, and I worked really hard on it. So I think that was probably the most impressive part, was just how hard I had worked. It was a project from beginning to end, and I really cared about it.
That's one of the biggest things. It's the projects you work on should be projects that you care about. Because when you're going to tell them, describe them to employers, like employers can feel that passion. So if you have that passion to talk about it, they're going to bring that passion to my business.
Yeah. And yeah, so definitely picking a project that you're really passionate about is super important. And I think the other impressive part is that it was an entire pipeline from beginning to end, and it's actually something usable. So it's like still up on a website that you can go to and use it. I haven't updated it in 3 years, but it's there. You can use it. And they're actually at Galvanize still using this as an example in their curriculum. So
high praise right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing, is also building something that's useful. So like if it's hosted, like people can actually use it, then that shows you can create value.
Right.
So that's great. And then during your job search also, did you work on any other projects, or was it just straight head in the weeds, like applying?
It was pretty much head in the weeds applying at that point. I did a hackathon with a few friends. So that was kind of another project that we included in our resumes, was the project that we worked on at our hackathon. But yeah, most of the time I was considering working on my ski run recommender and improving it a little bit, but I just got so bogged down with applications. I was trying to balance, having a life and the full-time job of applying for a job.
Yeah. And then also with the hackathon. So one thing I kind of see for people that graduate as data science bootcamp grads is trying to contribute to projects. So, developers, designers, like they can kind of create products pretty easily, but the data scientist kind of always wonders, hey, where do I fit in things? So would you have any recommendations on projects you would have worked on if you had to?
I mean, there's so many open source libraries out there for data science that there's generally something that you can contribute to them. If you have used that library and, think of something that you think would be a cool feature, you can always suggest that, or just, put it in there. So those are always good things. I mean, there are always times when I'm working on something and I'm like, why can't I do that with this? And then, maybe I can. I just haven't done it yet.
So when you say open source, can you give me an example of one of those packages?
No, not off the top of my head, but there are a lot of libraries that are out there that are just like on GitHub, and you can download it from GitHub, and that's the library that you're using in Python. And so many of them, you can just like go and recommend something. You can like submit a pull request or something with some feature that you want.
So you were using like GitHub or stuff like that? Like you were actively engaged in like doing pull requests and projects and everything?
I haven't been, but that is something that I have wanted to do, is contributing to those open source libraries.
Gotcha. And then, other than open source, do you think there is a place for like a data scientist in like an actual like tangible project? So like I know that you have yours, but so do you think they should like think about doing other ones like that?
I mean, I think there are so many applications for data science, and like so many places in anyone's life where they can probably think of some application for data science. So I feel like if you have some idea of like something that you want to do, then go for it. Like if it's going to improve your life in any way, it will probably improve somebody else's as well. So just like those kinds of things, as long as you have a reason for doing it and have some like application for it, then it's a good project.
Well said. Okay, so going back to first year on the job, having that senior person is definitely nice to have, especially when they have the same problem as you. Did it take like a little bit to like warm up and start asking questions, or was it more like, hey, like I can't ask questions yet, or I don't want to annoy anyone?
Yeah. So for my first big project, I was working at a client, and there were 3 of us from my consulting company. So there were 3 of us that were consulting with this client. So I was working very closely. Yeah. Okay. All data scientists. So I was working very closely with one of the senior data scientists. So it was kind of easier to like ask him like, hey, what's going on here, than like asking the client. Because, asking the client is scary because we're supposed to be impressive. Like they hired us for a reason. So it's nice to have somebody else from my company who I could be like, hey, what's going on? What am I supposed to be doing right now? And he could sort of help me through that. And we worked pretty closely for the first couple of months. And then after that, we were sort of pulled onto different projects at the same client. So we were on like different teams and not really working closely together anymore. But it was nice because we still had that shared experience of like the same client company. So I could still like ask him questions, even though I was like off doing something totally different.
Yeah, it's important. So do you think you would have taken a job where there wasn't some sort of person you can kind of, ask questions to, like if you were the only data scientist coming out of bootcamp, or you think that's not a good idea?
So I was definitely thinking really hard about that when I was applying for jobs. Like, what kind of job do I want? Do I want to be the only data scientist? Do I want to be on a team? Do I want to be in a small company? Do I want to be in a big company? Do I want to be doing everything, or do I want to be just doing a subset of things? And by the time that I was taking a job, I was feeling kind of desperate. And I was like, you know what? Anyone who wants to hire me, that's the job I'll do. But I'm really happy that I ended up where I did, on a team full of data scientists, with experienced data scientists who can help me out.
That's great. And I feel like it really kind of shortens the learning curve, because otherwise, if you're just alone, like all you got is Stack Overflow, GitHub. Like,
I mean, I still rely on those a lot, but it's nice to have other input.
Everyone does, but it's different between it being the only source but then supplementing it. So now you said almost 3 years on the job?
Yep, almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Okay, so have you either moved up, or has your role changed in any way since then?
I've had a lot more independent projects since then. Like, I have had other clients where I've been the only data scientist from our company on the client. So it's just me, nobody else with me. And I have to kind of figure it out on my own, what the client wants, how I can give it to them, how it's all going to work, and, communicating with the client back and forth, reporting back to my company, all of those things. So that's a very different position than I was in at that first client. So it's changed in that sense. I think one of the great things about my company is that they really care about my personal growth. So if I'm not currently working with a client and I'm on the bench, it's basically like, hey, take this time and learn whatever you want to learn. And it's not wasted time. It's time for personal growth. And they really care about our personal growth and us, increasing our knowledge and moving on. And they also care about making sure that we're on a path that we want to be on. So we had a conversation recently about like what my career goals are. Like, do I want to be the next most expert deep learning person? And I was like, that's not really what I'm looking for. So it's nice to know that they actually like care about where I'm going and what I'm doing, and making sure that I'm still learning.
Yeah, the companies like that are huge, especially early on, and actually even like deeper into the career, because the field is constantly changing. Like there's literally new packages all the time, and different methods, and then conferences. And yeah, if the company is not investing in in the latest stuff, then they're gonna become high.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we also.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, we also have like a machine learning discussion group that people are part of. So we read new papers every week and discuss them. So just constantly.
That's nice. So you have like your own mini data science community in the company.
Yeah, we are very, very active on Slack. So everybody's on Slack all the time. We have different channels for the different projects we're on, but then we also have a food and drink channel, and a sports channel, and a games channel, and machine learning, and data science, and channels for everything.
Sounds like a fun team. And it's always been remote, or has everyone been in Denver?
It's always been remote. Headquarters of our company when I joined was in Maryland. So there were some people that lived around that area who would go into an office space like on Fridays if they wanted to. And there are some of us out here in Denver, some people just spread across the country. And then we got acquired, and the headquarters is in, I think, Boise, Idaho now. But I haven't been there, and everybody's remote. So.
And then when you're working with clients, is working with clients also remote, or is that usually in your city?
Yeah, working with clients is also remote. I've had to travel to a client site a few times just for kickoff and some meetings and things like that, but I've never had to travel too much. I know some of our clients do want people to be on site, so sometimes people do have to do more travel for that.
Yeah, that's always going to be a thing. Even with remote, I don't think people forget about that. When working with a client, though, so because I know some people come out and after job searching, they know they have the knowledge, but maybe especially now, like the job market's tough, so they consider going to freelancing. So for those people that might be working with clients, what's like your biggest tip to work with clients? Because people don't understand data science. So like, how do you make sure you give them what they need?
Yeah. So my biggest tip is, I guess, to start off, finding out what they actually want. Because most clients think they want data science, but they have no idea what to use it for. They know that they need it, but they don't know how to implement it or what it'll look like. Some of them have really big goals of like, data science is going to solve all the world's problems and you can do it in a month. So you just kind of setting expectations of like what is possible with data science and what you can do for them, like what you can provide, is the best way to start things off. Because you don't want to be going into it with them having way too high of expectations. You want to kind of set it straight, like what you are able to do, but also more of what data science can do than they do. So you can also suggest things and offer things and come up with potential solutions. It just takes a lot of conversation back and forth because they have the domain knowledge and you have the technical knowledge.
That's true. So I don't know if you're allowed, but is it possible to give like an example of one of the projects you've worked on?
I don't think I can discuss client names specifically, but
no client names, but like just like an example of something that people could expect as like a project.
Yeah. So the one that I'm working on now is a natural language processing project where we take in a document, we identify questions, and then we can suggest answers to those questions.
So the questions are like handwritten questions, or what is it?
It's like filling out a form. So most of them are digital, but just like identifying text and then analyzing it to offer solutions.
Got you. And then once it scans the questions, you can give an answer. Like, is it more to store the answers in a database, or is it to say, okay, these are your questions, here are the answers from there?
Yeah, it's more like here are the answers to actually like fill out the form so that the person doesn't have to like think about the answers on their own. But rather than like give an answer, we're like giving a confidence score of like, it's this likely that this could be the answer to the question that you want.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that sounds cool. And I'm guessing you've probably done a bunch of other cool ones. So while you're working on that, I know you became a mentor at Thinkful. So what led you to do that? Was there something where, it was just like, okay, like why not do a side gig? Or was it more, hey, I want to give back? Like, what was it?
Yeah, so first, a recruiter reached out to me and was like, hey, we would like you to work for Thinkful. And I was like a year into my job and I was like, wow, I'm flattered. That's cool. You want me to teach other people data science? Like, do you think I'm qualified? Awesome. And then it was kind of more of a, I wanted to give back. I've been there. I've been through the boot camp. I've done the job search, the whole career change kind of thing. And I feel like I learned a lot of things on the way and wanted to be able to help people also navigating that same process.
No, exactly. Like when you've been in someone's shoes, it's easier to help them on their journey. So it's great that you came back and did at Thinkful. Did you consider other boot camps, or was it just like Thinkful reached out, let me go on this one?
Yeah, it was more just like Thinkful reached out. I feel like by that point, like Galvanize is great. I still want to help out with Galvanize where I can, but they have a different setup. They don't have people coming in and mentoring. They have an instructor and they have a data science resident who's recently been through the course, who stays in is like a TA. So they have just like a completely different structure. They don't have mentors, people who do assessments, grading, any of that.
Gotcha. So then once you became a mentor, so for those that aren't familiar with Thinkful, there's multiple formats that people can kind of mentor. So there's like one-on-one mentorship where you meet with them twice a week. There's office hours that you can host. There is basically like live chat support, mock interviews. So there's a bunch of stuff. So for you, Karen, what did you initially start in?
So I started as a one-to-one mentor. And it was actually kind of a rocky start. My first 2 students stayed partway through the course and then decided they wanted to switch to data analytics. So I was thinking, like, am I ever going to have a student finish the course? Eventually I did, so that was good. But yeah, I started out in one-to-one mentorship. And then I started holding office hours. And then I started doing curriculum maintenance. So when people submit issues in the curriculum, I am the one who goes and looks at the issues and decides if I can fix them or if someone else should. And then I started doing assessments and mock interviews. And then I most recently joined the training support format. So I am working with educator onboarding for new mentors and the whole process behind like training and evaluating and all of that.
Gotcha. So you've been in every single format. So you probably have a lot of insight into kind of the thinking of, bootcamp grads and what they struggle with. So starting first in the mentorship side. So what do you see as like the most common question or mistake that people make when learning?
I think the most common mistake people make is like not thinking outside of the curriculum. They're so focused on getting their assignments done that they don't think about the capstone until they need to be thinking about it. And then they're like, oh, let me just find a data set so I can get this done. Whereas it's so much better if you think of a project that you want to do and then you get to do it rather than like having to do it.
Yes, because my friend actually did UX design at Thinkful. And, while he was in it, he's like, yeah, I got to do this assignment. I got to do this assignment. I got to do this assignment. And like, now that he's done, he's like, yeah, like now I'm actually learning. It's like when you're in it, you're just like focused on like meeting this deadline, but you have to understand it in order to be able to apply it in real life.
Completely. I always see students just clicking through the curriculum and just like going through it. And I'm like, did you understand what you just went through? Like, could you repeat it? And they're always like, oh, I should go and look at that again. Like, try to do it on my own.
Yeah, it's like that. And then also people, are out of it. Like I see people going on Udemy or something like that. And, they complete something, they get a certificate, like they do the checkbox, but what did you build? Like, I feel like you have to be applying as you're learning. Otherwise you're not actually learning.
Right. Totally.
So then moving to the other formats. So you did, so one, you do interview assessment. So is that like stuff like a technical assessment you could possibly see before an interview?
So mock interviews, there's like a phone interview, a behavioral interview. There's 4 of them: phone, behavioral, role, and technical. So those are all designed to be like actual interviews. So I really enjoy giving those. And then assessments are looking at their capstone projects and giving them feedback based on their presentations.
Okay, so let's walk through each of those kind of like interview things. The first, phone interview. What is important for people to do on the phone interview to make it to the next round?
I think the most important part of the phone interview is to just be personable. Like, don't be afraid. Have a nice conversation with them. Like, it's not necessarily like you're being grilled. So just, have a nice conversation with them. You want them to see themselves being able to work with you. And then you'll be able to move on to the next interview.
Yes. Not the huge thing is people think, I feel like one of the bad things about learning about interviews is you're like, okay, I got to do this. 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 And then you forget to be yourself. And people can sense that in an actual interview. They know when you're not genuine. So you got to be yourself. And that's a good point for the phone interview, especially when they're not even seeing your facial expressions or anything like that.
Right. Yeah.
So then when you make it to the next round, so after the phone interview, I guess now would be technical assessment. So
there's still like a few before technical where it's still just discussing more like you in the role.
Okay.
And so that's where you're supposed to like know the job description. You should know about the company. You should know about the industry. Like you should have knowledge of all of those and like be able to tell them what the job is about in your own words without reading the job description back to them, and like know what kind of technology you might be working on. And then one of the most important things is having questions for your interviewer, questions that are about data science. So not questions like, will I get 3 weeks vacation? But questions that are like, what kinds of problems would we be solving? Where would I fit in this team? What skills are you looking for? Like harder data science questions like that.
Exactly. I'd show like you've thought through like what you would be doing in the role.
Right. So then they can actually see you working in the role on their team.
That makes sense. So then, and then moving to, I guess, what stage are we at now?
Well, I guess behavioral and role are kind of similar in that sense. Like one of them will be with a recruiter and one of them will be with someone on the data science team, but they're very similar interviews, similar goals there. And then the last one is the technical interview, which has some questions about SQL, Python, data science tools. Some of it is just discussion and some of it is whiteboarding. The biggest things with those that I want people to know is that I don't really care if you get the code exactly right. What I care about is seeing your thought process. So if you say like, oh yeah, I don't remember how to get a random integer, but I would look up, I would Google like NumPy random integer, and then I would get the proper syntax. Like, tell me that. That's great. But don't just like sit there floundering. Like, I don't know how to write this, so I'm stuck and I can't move on. Like, I care if you know how to solve the problem, and part of solving it might be Googling it. I do that too.
Yeah, that's another thing, is like being genuine in what you actually do. Like if you don't know something, you could say it, but also like if you would Google, I guess that is something you could say. That's something I know, like when I was job searching initially for data science roles, like I would do anything but admit, hey, like I don't know, or hey, I would Google. I'd be like,
I never wanted to say that either, but like seeing someone's thought process and knowing that they know how to find the answer is so much better than them like struggling and just like being afraid. Like, I don't care if you necessarily know it. I care if you know how to find it.
Exactly. It makes sense. And that's one thing that, and I talk to a lot of developers also, and they get mad about like whiteboarding and like algorithm stuff, because they're like, yeah, like I'm never going to really be doing this. But I feel like usually in data science assessments, it's usually kind of relevant to what you actually are going to be doing. Right?
Yeah, we generally would ask for something relevant. I mean, you're never going to be writing code where you can't test it. So that's the part that I hate about whiteboarding, is that like I try things in Pandas. If I don't know like the exact syntax, I try something and then I'll try something else. And sometimes I stumble upon the right thing. But you can't necessarily do that in whiteboarding because you can't try it and see if it works.
No, exactly. Like it's unnatural, which I don't like. So then also as part of the training, do you talk them through like offers? Like what to do in that case?
There are career coaches who I think would talk about that kind of thing with them.
Okay. Yeah, because Professor Pratt, he was asking like when you get an offer, how did you handle a negotiation, and was your offer a low ball or what? So I guess that's more towards your actual experience getting an offer.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that. I don't like negotiation. It makes me uncomfortable. And especially when I was getting my first job, I didn't know what was a good salary for a data scientist in Denver at a starting level, and my company was in Maryland, so it's like totally different there too. So it's just one of those where I had like no idea. But they basically asked like, what were you looking for? And I just like picked a number that was in the middle of the range that I had heard of for data scientists and was like, this is what I'm looking for. And they were like, okay, well, how about we give you less than that with a benefit package, or like with a bonus that'll get you up to that. And I was like, I would really like that as my base salary with the bonuses on top of that. And they were like, oh, okay. So, I mean, like, it was not a hard negotiation. I probably could have negotiated more, but I had no idea where to start.
I feel you. Like, I remember when I got like my first job offer, they called me and I was like, okay, I'll consider it. And then like, I was so excited that I called 5 minutes back. I'm like, I'll just take it. I'm like, I'll take it.
Great. Done. Yep.
But yeah, I think I think everyone should negotiate, because I feel like only like really sketchy companies will like retract an offer from you asking for too much.
Right.
But yeah, like if you don't ask, you don't get.
Right. Definitely. Yeah.
So say now, say you were a bootcamp grad coming out of a program now, going into pandemic, recession, whatever catastrophe, whatever's going on, and trying to get a job. So what would your plan be to get hired?
I mean, my biggest advice to people is always just network, like actually have a conversation with somebody rather than sending out applications blindly. Like where we are coming from a boot camp, like nobody has any experience. You can dress your resume up. Like I put my projects first and then education and experience after that because projects are more relevant. So you want them to see it first. But like that only goes so far. So my biggest advice is always like talk to somebody. I know you can't go to networking events in person, but there are still virtual networking events. Like Denver has a Develop Happy Hour. That's a meetup group where you meet up on Zoom and then they go into breakout rooms. So you can still talk to people in small groups. So like things like that, just trying to still get out there and make connections, even if, companies are having a hiring freeze right now. At least they have you in mind for when they can hire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you want to keep yourself at the top of their mind because like it's something that salespeople do also is they just want to talk to someone and they might even sell like in the first interaction, but they want to like be fresh in someone's mind. So that's the same thing in the job search. Is like you're in a sales mode, so you got to consider all those tactics.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing is just making those personal connections with people.
So would you recommend making connections with everyone and you like also bootcamp grads and that, or would you say like, okay, only talk to the people that you want to work for?
I would say everyone, like don't just target certain people because sometimes you might talk to somebody who you don't think it's going to go anywhere, but they might know somebody who knows somebody who's looking for something like you. So it always helps to just reach out to anyone. I mean, I know for me and tons of other bootcamp grads, like I am always willing to talk about my experience. And like, if I know anyone who's hiring, I will definitely pass along their name. So I feel like a lot of other bootcamp grads are in a similar place where they know how tough it is. So they'll try to help if they can. So yeah, I mean, if I know anyone who's hiring, I'm like, sure, yeah, like I'll pass on your information, definitely. So I feel like making any of those connections is helpful.
Yeah, people need to realize like, and I feel like mostly like bootcamp grads in general, like they've been through the same journey, so they're more empathetic. People are going to want to help you, and you just got to ask because again, like if you don't ask, you don't get. Like people aren't going to like wake up in the morning and be like, all right, like how can I help that person? Like you got to help yourself and reach out to them to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, there are people who message me on LinkedIn all the time, like, hey, you've done this. Do you want to chat sometime? And I never say no. If anyone asks me if I have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to chat, like I'll do it. Like it doesn't hurt anyone to hear about my experience. So I'm always willing to chat. And then like somebody had added me on LinkedIn and I saw that a video of their most recent project. And I was like, hey, I know a company that was doing exactly that. Like, let me see if they're looking for someone. So, I mean, they might not be, but I can still try.
No, yeah, your calendar is going to be full after this because everyone's going to be messaging you. Just so you know.
Yeah, great.
If anybody in the audience has a question, feel free to write it. We're going to start getting to questions soon. And so until everyone writes some questions. So looking at data science today, I know before you mentioned that you don't want to go into deep learning now, but what's like the biggest thing that you like? So like currently.
So I guess recently had this realization that like this is what I like. It's like helping other people get into data science. Like it's actually something that I really enjoy doing. And like I had an intern over the summer. She was getting her master's degree and was sort of working with me. And it was awesome to like guide her and say like, this is what we're doing. Like, what ideas do you have? These are also some good ideas. Like, this is how you could go further with that. And it's just like, I know I'm not that senior now. I'm still like fairly junior myself, but like, yeah, I feel like being in that place where I'm still fairly junior, I can still help other people who are trying to get up. Like, I'm not intimidating. I'm sort of where they are or where they will be soon. So that's one of the things that I enjoy most.
That's another good point because so right now we're actually building like a wider platform for apprentice, and like there'll be mentoring included, and with the bootcamp grads that they're working on it, they're like, yeah, like let's have like people that have like 20 years experience. And I'm like, those people with 20 years experience like don't know what you're experiencing now.
They're not going to be helpful right now.
Yeah, I'm like they might be the ones that hire you eventually, but you want to have people that, you know, are between like 2 to 5 years out of boot camp, because they applied in like the modern age where we have LinkedIn and digital resumes and all these other kind of tools that go into the job process.
Yeah, I feel like those people who have, 15, 20 years experience, they're brilliant. They can help you with your work when you have the job, but like they don't remember what it was like to get there.
Exactly. You want to find people relevant that can give you, insights. So does anybody have any questions before we get Karen, and get out over here for the night? I know there are plenty of data scientists that are still looking. So if you got your questions, type them in now. We will definitely answer them. Just, let them fly. I know Professor Pratt has been very active, so I always appreciate those questions. I know William wrote some before that's a really good ROI. So I forgot what you mentioned before. Interesting. So yeah. So I don't know, I'm not seeing questions, but what we will do is I want to say thank you, Karen. So tonight was very enlightening. I always love talking to other mentors, other data scientists, and hearing about their experience. I know the data scientists in the audience, even if they're quiet, have learned a lot. So I will say thank you from them as well. For everyone in the audience, we're actually getting a question before you do it. So 1 second. Did you learn how to create your website and also use AWS in your program?
We learned very, very basic Flask and AWS skills. So creating them myself really was a lot of my own learning. It was the last couple of weeks of the program, so we didn't really have any other classes. It was just like focused on the project. So I really taught myself how to use those few tools and get really into those. I wish we had learned more about it in the course, and I think they do go into it a little bit more nowadays. But yeah, it was more self-taught.
Are the tools in AWS like a big part of your skill set now?
So I, for different clients, have used AWS and Google Cloud Platform. So I've used them both a bunch. I haven't used many of the same things that I used when I was creating my website, though. That was a different set of tools that I haven't touched since then.
Gotcha. So Alex Santana is asking, what kind of obstacles do you deal with in your current role?
Ooh, that's a good one. There's always different obstacles with different clients. So currently, it took a while to get us access to everything on their platform and then get us access to all the data that we need. So, to train a model, you need a certain amount of data. You need a certain set of data, right? Like if you have 6 different things, you need to have some of each thing to train the model. And so right now we have like 2 of those 6 things. So trying to like sort of make something and then hopefully generalize it more later. But yeah, it's usually like access to data and resources.
Yeah, and that actually happens in like big companies also. So like when I worked at Amex, like I would wait for months to get access to like certain tables, and then even once I found them, there's no documentation, no info. Ooh. And I'm like, what do these numbers mean? And it's like 1 through 10. I'm like, what is going on? And like that's probably the biggest part of like the data cleaning step is figuring out how to get the data you need.
Yeah. And on the note of documentation, that was another huge obstacle at one of my clients. I took on code that some other guy had worked on for a year, and then he left the company before I started looking at his code, and there was no documentation in it. And I needed to figure out what he was doing and why he was doing it. And I probably looked at his code for 3 weeks before I had any idea what was going on. So document your code.
Yeah. And also I forget what is it called when you label the actual data points in the table. It's not schema.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think there's something else. But so William was talking about the 60 apps and 5 responses. So, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also when I heard that. I was like that's pretty good, because I see people with hundreds of applications and 60.
Oh, yeah.
So 5 apps to 60 responses. That's a good ratio, and then 2 offers from that. Very solid.
Yeah. I mean, it was not bad. It definitely could have been much worse. I didn't have time for hundreds of applications. It was over the holidays. I still wanted to enjoy my Thanksgiving and Christmas.
I think Pablo's talking about what we're talking about. Reference. I don't believe it's reference, but I'll figure out that word. I won't be able to sleep without figuring it out tonight. So yeah, I think we are good on questions, unless like the last one comes in. So just wanted to tell everyone in the audience though that this will actually be our last talk until November. So we're going to kind of revamp everything and then come back with new branding, very like long list of guests that we'll have every single week going forward after that, podcasts and everything. So anybody that is in the community or in the audience and hasn't joined our community, you can join at prentice.co/community, where I'll post about any sort of announcements on that end, internships, mentoring, and the group projects platform that we're kind of building. So we did have one more question, and that's from Professor Pratt. He's asking, what are companies looking for mostly from a data scientist? Machine learning, analytics. Also, when they want production code, is that something you worry about?
I think a lot of companies are looking for, they want machine learning, or they think they want machine learning. Most companies think they want deep learning or, something crazy. I think mostly what they're looking for is just different insights into their data, like to either simplify a process or find new information that they previously didn't have. So whatever way is best to do that is up to you as a data scientist to figure out. And production code is sort of like, it's what you aim to get to. So you work on something and your project's not done until you have something usable that you can either put into a pipeline or just run. So lots of times in like bigger teams, you have other people who are, before you or after you in the pipeline. But in smaller teams, or when you're working on your own project, like I did, you have to do the whole thing yourself. So it really depends on what kind of company you're in.
Well said. And yeah, I think also, like we mentioned, is people always want the shiny stuff, so like machine learning, but often that's not even what they need. I feel like a lot of times it is just, a dashboard maybe that they need, and that's it.
Yeah, they just need a fancy way to show off their data, and you just need to be able to convince them that what you're giving them is worth their time and money.
Exactly. At the end of the day, your job is to help them make more money. But all right. So for anybody that wants to connect with Karen, so her LinkedIn is linked in the comments or in the banner below. Like she said, she's always open to chat, help any people trying to break into data science. So I guess you'll have another 20 hours of meetings next week. But everyone, if you want to just say thank you to her, then you can write that in the comments, or you can message her on LinkedIn again. But everyone, thank you for joining. And I hope Professor Pratt says thank you. It's been a big help. So thank you all for joining, and thank you again, Cam, for joining and sharing your knowledge. I hope everyone has a great night and enjoys the rest of your evening.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and good luck to everyone who's searching for a job.
There we go.